the Village of Ashwaubenon Finance and Personnel Committee for Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Roll call, please.
Chris Zerbo.
Here.
Tracy Flukie is not online. Okay, Kelly Service.
Here.
Tom Selk.
Here.
And Tim Jaden.
Here. Please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, and please keep in mind our brave men and women that are here and abroad helping us keep us safe and free. Action on the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action on minutes from our last meeting from February 20th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named. Board is not able to take action at this meeting. Any comments from the public? We have nobody in the audience. Nobody on the interweb, I guess. Comments from the public, none. We'll move on. Action on the consent agenda, investment report and April 2024 financial reports.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, action items. A, consider, discuss, act on management analyst position description and authorization to proceed with recruitment / hiring of position. Joel?
Thank you, Trustee Zerbo. Welcome, Tim, to the committee.
Thank you.
First time, right?
Yep.
Awesome. In your packet is a position description for what we're titling a management analyst role. If you are not aware of, Terry Lewis is unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess, for her, retiring from the village. Her last day will be in the middle of July. I should have said January 2025. Probably would have been better for us, right, Terry? But she is retiring from the village in the middle of July of this year, unfortunately, after 44 years of service to the village.
Wow.
So congratulations to Terry and her service to the village. She's done a fantastic job in those 44 years, serving in multiple roles, and most recently, and for the vast majority of the tail end of her 44 years here, as our confidential executive secretary for both Mary's office and then my office. As part of the 2025 budget or 2024 budget, we were aware that Terry had plans and intended to retire in 2024. So as a result of that, we made some structural changes to our organization chart. And in addition to Terry's retirement, if you recall, we also had our assessment technician retire this year as well. And so between Terry and Barb, who was our assessment technician, and their retirements, we kind of restructured or planned to restructure that aspect of our operations to kind of recognize some changes in our operations and needs across the entire organization. So it was really kind of a strategic effort. Two of those changes, in addition to the position that is being described tonight, was for an HR generalist. So by and large, Terry did a lot of the HR generalist roles for us for a number of years. HR has been a topic of conversation here at the village, and it was a top priority for me when I was hired nearly 4 years ago to really kind of solidify a true human resources department. So we went through that process over the last several years and most recently hired our human resources generalist, and her name is Megan Noltner. Megan started at the end of February and is slowly but surely kind of taking on the responsibilities that Terry was doing in her current role. When Barb retired, there were also some changes at the state level. So personal property tax was essentially eliminated at the state level, and as a result of that, a vast majority of what Barb had been doing delved into personal property tax. And because that went away, that allowed us an opportunity to retool that position and provide a greater deal of support to our village clerk's office. So the assessment technician position was converted to a deputy clerk role in order to support our clerk's office in a variety of different clerking responsibilities, from licensing to seller permits to certainly this upcoming election cycle, 2020 being or 2024 being a pretty important election year. So with that, that leaves us with Terry's role, knowing that she was going to be retiring this year, and some of the changes that we had with the clerk's office and the assessor's role. What we wanted to do is kind of combine a position that would both support the village president, the village manager's office, but also our village attorney, who had been previously supported by a deputy clerk, and then also some support with human resources. So with that, there's a pretty broad spectrum, as you can imagine, as to the types of responsibilities this individual would need to have. And as a result of that, we needed to really kind of look at the position description and define it in a way that we could attract a candidate that would fit within that role, if you will. And so that's where the management analyst comes into play. This is not a diminished role. This is similar to what Terry's been doing. Terry's just been doing it for 44 years. So over that time, she has gained the experience, knowledge, and abilities to do that role. When we hire someone, we're not going to find another Terry. That's just how it's going to work for us. So we have to hopefully find somebody that has the right foundation and experience to meet those needs. And so the management analyst, again, will support those different offices. They will provide some administrative support as it relates to being a point of contact, assisting in agenda preparation, minute preparation for boards and committees, certainly administrative support as it relates to things like our risk management program, things of that nature. But beyond that, the individual will also support and take a lead role on other initiatives that we've identified in our strategic plan as being important. One of those things is performance measurement. So we want to continue and advance our strategic plan, and in doing so, we need to begin measuring our performance against those strategies we've identified. This person would be really ultimately responsible for helping develop that program, instituting it, and then gathering the data to measure those performances across the organization. They will also assist all departments. So under our direction, we would give this individual certain projects to improve efficiencies within departments. So if you understand what lean is, that's kind of more of a manufacturing term. Ultimately, its effort is to find efficiencies in the workplace. This individual could help coordinate or work with various departments to find those efficiencies. And then finally, they can also assist in grants. So right now, we don't have anyone in particular that specializes in grant applications, grant administration, but this individual would ultimately be responsible for assisting in that effort. And then finally, with that, in order to find the individual with the correct skill set to kind of fill those needs and roles, we'd be looking for somebody that likely is going to have a desire or a pursuit to work in public administration. So they most likely have some type of undergraduate degree in public administration, business administration. Maybe there's a desire to eventually get a graduate degree and then ultimately move on to a career as a city or village manager in another role. This position would really give them that entry-level experience that they would need in order to prepare themselves for that next stepped position. And in addition to that, it really kind of lends that support both to myself, the attorney's office, so on and so forth, so that we have a basic foundation of education and understanding of what public administration is and the roles that we play throughout the organization. So with that, so again, Terry is planning to have her last day in mid-July. If this is approved at committee and village board next week, we would begin to look to advertise for this position, solicit for candidates. We would look to interview for this particular person probably in June. And then based on their availability and the right selection of a candidate, we'd be looking to have this individual start either shortly before or shortly after Terry is done so that we could provide a minimum amount of transition time between the two positions. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that the committee has. Otherwise, again, the packet includes the position description for your review and consideration.
Greg, what is it, one of the job, in a job description, it says that administer the village general liability and risk management program. What basically is that?
Yeah, so what that essentially is, so what Terry does right now is she helps administer commercial liability insurance programs, our workers' compensation insurance programs, and then to some extent, the application and the administration of the program, but cybersecurity. So what this person would do is they would help coordinate maybe bids and RFPs if we desire to go out and secure a different vendor to provide those insurance programs, or minimally, if a claim comes in, process that claim with the insurance vendor and provide the information necessary for the vendor to provide compensation for that claim.
Do any of the other local municipalities have a role similar to this, or would it be unique to Ashwaubenon only?
Certainly not unique to Ashwaubenon only. It would likely be unique to Northeast Wisconsin. I'm trying to think if there is a municipality in this Green Bay metro area that has a management analyst. I can't think that there is. But this is a very popular position title and expectation in other municipalities of similar, equal, or greater size. Oftentimes, especially if you were to be in the Madison area, it's mostly the suburban communities, Milwaukee area suburban communities, maybe the Twin Cities, things of that nature. As communities grow in size, it's not uncommon actually to see management analyst type positions in one or more departments, in fact. So oftentimes you have Public Works has a management analyst so that the Public Works director can really focus on the engineering and operations of it. And the management analyst handles kind of more the administrative business end of the department's operating.
I'll make the motion
Can
to,
you guys hear me? Sorry, I was late. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're kind of breaking up just a little bit.
No?
You're kind of moving in staggered sequences on the screen. So, and right now you look frozen. You look frozen a little bit, Tracy, but you have a smile on your face, so that's good. Yeah, I think we may have lost her. You're certainly welcome to, because this is really something that is important to discuss if you'd like. Certainly can table the item for now and move on to the next agenda item if you wish, and then when Tracy comes back on, you can bring it back to the floor if you'd like. So just take a simple motion, second, and a vote to table the item for later on in the agenda to move on to the next item.
I think that's a pretty good idea. I think there was something she wanted to offer.
I'll
To the
move to
side.
table this item until later in the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll table this for a little bit later. B, investment policy. Greg?
Yeah, so every year around this time, I'd like to bring forth the investment policy to the Finance Personnel Committee. If there's any changes or not. There are no changes to the policy we've had in place for a number of years. So it's here for your review. Again, our investment policy is very consistent with other Wisconsin municipalities. In fact, much of it is kind of common statute language. Safety, liquidity, and yield are our priorities in our policy, and we share that with our investment advisors at Associated Trust, who manage a couple of our investment portfolios, and that's the premise. They have this document, and they build our portfolio based off of this. Also, auditors review this every year for any differences or changes.
Do we need a motion to approve it? Or is this just information?
It's really just information only. It's part of our policy is to bring this forth every year, just as, usually if there's changes that would need to be approved, but since it's no changes, just information only.
Any questions on this item, investment policy? Nothing's changed on it?
No.
Okay. It's worked wonderfully for the village
You need a motion
to
on
this
that?
point.
You want a
Information
motion on
only.
that?
Information only.
I'll move that we approve the investment policy as presented.
Okay,
Second.
yeah, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. C, 2023 fund financial reports.
So wanted to give the committee a review of where we're at with 2023 financials. For all intents and purposes, they're final. The audit isn't officially completed, but we're going through the ACFR and all the financial reporting right now. So what do you have before you? You can see the general fund. The first few pages are the general fund. We're looking at having a surplus. There's another agenda item coming to prove something, but ultimately the surplus is the $730-some thousand of surplus. And I want to walk through how we got there on the year. Although that looks very positive, a vast majority of that was interest income. It was a huge year for interest income. We didn't budget the amount that we had, so we were over interest income over $1 million over budget. So if you take that away from a $700,000 surplus, there were some areas of concern. We did address those in 2024 budget. That's things like vehicle repairs were really high, gas, electric, a lot of items that really out of our scope or out of our control. Vehicles have been an issue for the last few years in delays in delivery. So some vehicles that we would have liked to replace 2 years ago, we're just getting today. So those are increased maintenance costs as we've carried those longer than we like. Again, that's a little bit out of our control. And we're talking about the big items. We're talking about dump trucks, bigger vehicles that obviously when they go to the shop, it's not a couple $100s, it's a couple $1,000s, and that adds up. So we're working through that internally with our vehicle replacement plan. But overall, operationally, we're fine. The village is strong. We knew we had the interest income, so we knew we didn't have to make tougher decisions, if you will, in that regard. So we're not overspending on supply lines and things like that. It's all needed items. We also had public safety's dealing with a lot of attrition, so there's a lot of extra overtime that offsets the lost wages. Well, that adds up. Actually, overtime is more expensive than regular time. So still, again, trying to manage through that, but that's just a constant reality in the work world today with trying to stay fully staffed in public safety. But overall, we're doing well. We've addressed a lot of this in the budget. We should be fine for 2024. So that's just kind of the quick and dirty on the year. Interest income was great. We hope to maintain that over the next few years, but if you can tell me what the rates are going to be in a year from now, then we'll hire you, I guess, as a consultant. So overall, I think we're doing well, and I don't have any other concerns. So it's just information for you. That's the year. The final audit will be presented next month. I'll bring it up later, but you will be invited to the village board meeting on the 25th of June when the auditor is here to present the final audit and go through that, and you'll have a chance to ask questions there as well. So if I go back to agenda item, I believe it's just information only on this as well. I also included other funds, so not just the general fund, but we have special revenue funds, capital project funds, and just going through in our our internal service funds, our health, dental, and vehicle replacement plans. All of those funds are doing really well. Special revenue are funds that have revenue come in from something other than taxes. So like park development, that's all park development fees. We have like a K-9 program, the DARE programs with public safety. Those are all donations or used to be through parking revenue. All of those funds are managed based on the income they get, and they spend down on the items within those categories. Capital project funds, street construction is going well, village building fund, things like that. We use those to do our streets, maintenance on the buildings and improvements and the like. All of those funds did pretty well according to as planned along the year. And then our internal service funds, we talked a lot about dental and health insurance over the last few years. Our health insurance fund, the items that we put in place to improve worked. We were able to raise our fund balance $152,000 on the year. Again, we want that fund balance to be somewhere between 3 to 6 months worth of actual spend. And so now we're just short of 600,000, which is getting us really close to where we want to be for that fund balance. So that was a good experience for the year in that plan, in that fund. Equipment replacement, we were able to get the vehicles we wanted to get. Again, we're just delayed. You order a fire truck today, you hope to get it in 2027, 2026. Just that's how long things take. So we've been managing that. We likely go to the board early before budget to get things approved ahead of time, to get the ball rolling on those and get the orders in. Things have gotten a little bit better with patrol vehicles and some of the fleet vehicles, but it's still the big items there's a long waiting period. But the fund is doing well. We have a nice healthy balance there as well to control our fleet. So overall, financially, the village is doing very well, and we're positioned well so far this year. The changes we made in the budget are working, so I think we'll end the year at a surplus, probably only due to interest income if that were to continue. But overall, we haven't had any negative action this year. Any questions?
On page 40, which is the statement of revenues and expenditures, that's my page 40. You have on the bottom the 6,018,930 as a total fund balance. That is basically your general fund and all the other reserve funds?
That is just the general fund. So we have a requirement, our fund balance policy requires us to maintain, we modified that earlier this year, that our fund balance must be not less than 20%, but not greater than 30% of the next year's budgeted expenditures. So for 2023, we wanted to end the year somewhere between 20 to 30% of 2024's general fund expenditures, and we'll be sitting right at about 27%. That's on the next page after that. It talks about, so we feel comfortable with that. That's a nice fund balance number to maintain. The other funds in themselves, like the vehicle fund, has a $4 million reserve balance. Now, part of that's tied up with, I don't want to get into the accounting too deep, but part of that's tied into the net value of the assets themselves. But we're in a position that if something happens to a fire truck, we have available balance to cover. We don't have to then go to bonding or borrowing or go to the general fund. And most of the other funds have a nice healthy balance related to their fund. So like the K-9, for example, they don't need to have $100,000 as much as they want to. They need to maintain a lower fund balance than they do. So the general fund balance is focusing just on the general fund, our general operations, our day-to-day. We'll talk in the next item about other things like the village building fund. We'd like to keep some reserve in there so that if something happens, we have a leak in the roof, we have money available in that fund to fix the roof versus having to go to the general fund and pull money out and reallocate budgeted dollars and things like that. So the next pages after that, we'll get into those other funds, and that will tell you each of those, it shows their fund balance.
Could you you have other finances sources on the same page. Can you just, like transfers in, transfers out?
Sure.
What is that? What happens?
So the first transfer in is the 325. That is money that gets put into the budget from the TIF districts. So for the amount of time and energy that we as staff put in for the TIFs, that's money that's transferred back, kind of reimbursement back to the general fund. So I spend a lot of time, when I do financial reporting, I do reporting for the general fund, I do reporting for each of the TIF districts, I do separate reporting for the utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like a chargeback to that, those TIF districts, because they're their own kind of self-funded groups. They pull in their own incremental tax, and they have their own cost structure that's separate to the general fund. Therefore, my time, your time here, the village manager's time, our public works time and energy, that if they're doing a lot of work. And so that, when you break that down, that's, each of the districts are charged back a little bit each year. And then that's what that transfer is to the general fund. But basically, it's a reimbursement, if you will. The transfer in property tax equivalent is from the utilities. So that is their property. They don't get charged property tax. Remember, the utilities are treated like, basically like a private business. We're a public entity. They have fees. Even the accounting, they have net income. We don't have net income in government side. They have a fee structure that they provide a service and get a fee for, but they don't pay tax. So this is a payment in lieu of tax, if you will, back to the village. And there's a whole formula regulated by the PSC and how you calculate that. That would be every municipality that has utility like we do would have the same thing. So that's managed each year. It's based off of your fixed asset values and then your tax rates and things like that. The transfer out is, again, this is unaudited, unfinal. That is the next agenda item that is yet to be formally approved, but that would be the recommendation to transfer that out. Again, so if you take that transfer out of 372 plus the 400, that's our surplus on the year. The 372, we're going to recommend transfer it to the village building fund for future capital needs. And then the net change of 400,000, the recommendation will be to put that into the reserve for retirements for future employees that retire, have accrued time, sick, vacation, comp, that they get paid out when they retire, and those are big dollars. And we've always maintained a separate fund, but if you recall, last year the auditors recommended that we roll that fund into the general fund because from a reporting standpoint, they always merge the two. So we replaced a separate fund with, if you go down the page, there's a reserve for retirement account within our equity section. Kind of acts the same way, it's just now it's maintained within the general fund. So that net change in fund balance of 400,000, Tom, will then roll directly into that restricted cash. So it's excess, but now it's going to be labeled restricted. We can only use it for retirements. And we want to do that because we've got retirements every year. So there's our payouts that come along the way.
I like your explanation on the last page. That's very helpful.
Okay.
How
Any
about
other
the
questions?
transfers? On the transfers? I like the explanation you put in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I think that was information only, right?
Yes.
Do we need a motion on that one?
No.
To approve to the board to transfer all that? Oh, that's to the
Nope, that's
next.
the next agenda item.
We'll get that right now. D, 2023 general fund transfer of excess funds. Greg?
So I wanted to go through all the financials and leads into this one. So again, we're technically ending the year with excess funds in the general fund. Now we're talking just general fund at this point. We don't do any transfers of other funds. Those are self-sustaining. If there's money left over that year, then the next year they have access to it. But the excess funds in general fund is $757,157.67. And the recommendation here would be, again, 400,000 of that we're going to push into restricted cash for reserved for retirements. And then the remaining 357 would be moved to the village building fund. The reason why we picked the village building fund is that's an area that if we look at a long-term capital planning, those are areas that we generally have needs. We do have in our CIP, which will be presented later this summer, some needs out in the garage area, potentially expansion with that area, which will obviously create large cost items. Moving it here can be temporary, and the fact that the board, somewhere down the road, 6 months from now, we need something. The village board can take action to move it from here to another need at that point in time. I think it's important that, like I said, the village building fund is the one that and street construction typically annually have enough projects going on and to maintain. And that's what the recommendation is, to move it there. So therefore, we would still maintain our fund balance where we want it to be overall, meeting our fund balance policy. And this will help with future project needs and help eliminate debt service down the road. And because this is a one-time funding, we don't want to put this into hiring a new position or something that'll be an ongoing recurring cost. We want to put into a capital need that is kind of a one-time, once every 20, 30-year cost. So that would be the recommendation. Transfer $400,000 to employee retirement reserve account and the remaining $357,000 to the village building fund.
Just out of curiosity, Greg, was there a Plan B, or maybe not Plan B, but other areas that maybe this money could have gone to as well?
So what typically we do is it'll go there, and then during the budget time, a lot of things will start to present itself there. What do we need? Do we have needs going into 2025 that we potentially know we've got this here that, okay, oh shoot, we really want to get this one-time thing taken care of. Maybe that's it. Quite frankly, we've got the draft coming up. We don't know what that cost is going to entail for us as a village. We may need to use some of that to help offset some of those one-time draft costs, whether that's some signage or infrastructure improvements that we want to try to get done or whatever, which hasn't really been presented out there, but we know internally that there's going to be cost for something, whether it's planting flowers, 1 million, who knows what we're going to, 1 million flowers in the village, who knows, right? We don't have anything budgeted for that today. That could be a potential source of funding for something like that as well, kind of a one-time cost. But during the budget time, we would know that's there because it hasn't officially been assigned to any particular project per se. But let's say in the village we decide, hey, yeah, we want to expand or we want to put a carport or something, I don't know, whatever. We could use that money there, or whatever that project is we're not thinking of today, or something in the CIP plan that we want to bump up, or we were planning to borrow for, now we don't have to borrow for, we have money available. All those things come up during the budget time, and so,
Right.
yeah, that would kind of answer your question. That's kind of how we typically looked at it in the past.
Okay, so, okay,
Yeah, and I'll just add to that too. So, I mean, we could clearly keep it in the general fund. That's fine. But the most appropriate location as of today are those two funds that we've identified, and that's primarily based on what we perceive to be short-term needs for funding. So the employee retirement fund, which Tim may not be familiar with, but basically this is a set-aside amount of dollars. So when individuals retire from the village, there's certain benefit payouts that they've accumulated over their career that then have to get paid out at retirement. And depending on the nature of that individual and how their duration that of their tenure with the village and what they've accumulated, it could be anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 of benefit payout to each retiree. So $400,000 could be 5 to 6 retirees in a given period of a 12-month period. And we do know that based on what we've been told for retirements, we will have about 4 to 5 retirements over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. So that those dollars will be of need in that fund over that period of time. So that's where that $400,000 comes from. The building improvement fund or the building maintenance fund, as many of you know, we're in the process of securing proposals from vendors to do a facility assessment or facility condition assessment study, as well as a space utilization study. It's likely that those studies are going to come back and say, hey, you need to replace a chiller or a boiler or something. This building is over 30 years old, and so as a result of that, there are certain components of the building that have likely reached their life expectancy and will need replacement. Doors, windows, as I mentioned, HVAC systems, certain plumbing fixtures. So we know that that's kind of a short-term need. Now, as Greg had pointed out, when we get to budget time, these dollars are unallocated to specific projects. So the board ultimately could pull funding out of that to put to a different priority, like the draft as an example. We're in the process of putting together our thoughts and our plans as to how we can best serve and operate the draft in 25, and that will likely result in real dollars that will need to be set aside to support the operations and execution of the draft here in our community.
okay, thank you. All right, this one we need a motion.
I'll move to approve and recommend approval to the village board, the transfer of $400,000 to the employee retirement reserve account and transfer the $357,000 and change from the general fund to the village building fund for future capital project needs.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. We gotta circle back to A, right? Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. So a simple motion to bring item 8A off the table and back to discussion would be necessary based on Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay,
So moved.
Second?
we have a motion and a second, to come back to item, 8A. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so we're back at A, consider discuss act on management analyst position, description or authorization to proceed with recruitment and hiring of the position.
So I believe trustee Flukie may have had a question or a comment. And so this item was tabled during the time that she was kind of locked out. So I'm not sure if trustee Flukie is able to interact with us or not.
I don't know, can you hear me at all, you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
You can, okay, great, thank you. Sorry about all the mess up with the technology. The questions I had on it, I got a chance to listen to most of it, but got cut off, is the position that we're filling, the executive secretary position, which Terry has covered for many years very well. Thank you, Terry. The question I have is the position that we're putting in place seems like it's a more higher level professional position. And my question is, I would assume a lot of Terry's tasks over the years have been more administrative in nature and clerical. And I am wondering who is going to be doing that type of work. When I look at that position description, it doesn't really list, I think, a lot of the clerical type stuff. So that is my concern. Are we getting maybe too top heavy with putting this management type position in versus the day-to-day type tasks that need to get done? So that's where I'm at it. And I know you worked at it as at a staff level to come up with this. So that's my concern on it. So if you could maybe address that a bit, how that other work, clerical type work, will be taken care of.
Sure, that's a great question. I think, and certainly to Terry's benefit, with the years of experience that she's had, she's kind of accumulated more of those, I would say, advanced administrative responsibilities. Certainly Terry does provide, and Terry can advocate on her own behalf too, but certainly does provide at times administrative support. But in talking with our staff team here, whether it be Human Resources, Patrick, our attorney, myself, and certainly Mary, our village president, we, I guess in today's kind of workforce generation, there is probably a little bit less demand for that secretarial administrative support. Oftentimes we certainly are typing our own correspondence, setting up a lot of our own meetings and coordinating some of those conversations. So much of that type of work is being handled on a one-to-one individual basis. Does Terry support us at times? Certainly. But I think, and Terry can certainly talk on this on her own behalf, but even 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was probably transcription happening, and she was writing correspondence off of a handwritten note, things of that nature, or taking dictation and typing memos. Those types of activities are just simply not happening today in today's, I guess, modern office environment. We're all just typing on our own. I'll be honest with you, I would type faster than I could handwrite a note to give to Terry to type. I couldn't even find a tape recorder to dictate, to give her something to dictate. So a lot of the tasks that you see in here that are somewhat more administrative are tasks that Terry are currently doing. And I think that even though it be an analyst position, it'll be important for that individual to come in and be a hands-on position. So I don't necessarily see this as a managerial position. It's just a hands-on analyst that will take on more technical administrative duties that Terry is certainly doing now, but again, we won't be able to find someone with 44 years of experience with Ashwaubenon. So we're going to have to kind of grow that talent with a basic foundational level of education.
Bill, and I get that, Joel, you know, it's changed a lot, the work environment and how we interact with other people within the environment, but there's still some of those clerical type things that need, like, minutes getting done. Terry obviously does the minutes from this meeting, answering the phones, that type of thing. If that position is gone to a conference or out for some professional development, then who's covering all of the other day-to-day type tasks that need to get done?
Yeah, it's same as it is today. So this position would still serve as the primary executive secretary or recording secretary for various committees and commissions. So agenda preparation, minute preparation, that type of activity would still be done through the analyst as the primary person. Again, that has changed. Sort of minutes certainly haven't. You know, that's a singular individual that's typing minutes. But agenda preparation now, 10 years ago, they were probably paper copies, and now everyone is producing and preparing their own agenda items. They're entering them into the system, and it's a matter of just making sure that the agenda is prepped and cleaned up. So. So a lot of that heavy lifting has been resolved. But to answer your question, as far as backup goes, there are systems in place now. So if Terry's on vacation, another one of the administrative support staff could certainly provide that, whether it be Kelly in the Parks and Recreation Department. She's been known to assist in committee meetings. But then also when we set up the job description for the Deputy Clerk 1 position, that did indicate on that job description that will provide the backup role to the recording secretary, which would be the management analyst.
And maybe you said this at the meeting and I got cut off, but what is the wage going to be for this position? It sounds like it's comparable to what Terry is making now.
Yeah, the existing wage stays the same. So on the agenda packet, I think we talked about, it would be in the position description. So it would be a salary grade 6. So it's the exact
Grade
same
6,
as
yeah.
the current position. So there is no change in wage.
Okay, and what is grade 6, Joel? Do you know off the top of your head? I was trying to look that up, like what that wage is.
I can find it if you give me just a brief moment.
Okay. And then I guess I'm assuming that Terry was involved in maybe helping to determine this new position. So I guess with her currently serving it, if she wouldn't mind at least saying, you know, her thoughts on it, as far as the clerical end, to kind of alleviate some of my concerns on it.
I'll leave that to Terry, I guess, but she hasn't had a whole lot of direct involvement in this drafting, short of the components. So we reviewed everyone's position description, maybe about 2 years ago now, almost 2.5 years ago, and had those approved. So some of the key components as far as oversight over agenda and minute creation, kind of that secretarial recording secretary role for the committees and commissions stayed the same. You know, certainly the liability insurance provisions are in there. There are a number of adds to the position description that weren't there because they were shifted from the deputy clerk legal assistant as we talked about earlier with the restructuring of the position. So there's a number of legal components that have been added to the position description that weren't included in Terry's role. So there's a number of adds and subtracts, and then just kind of some bolstered language, if you will, as far as taking responsibility of certain initiatives or programs like risk management, grant administration, and performance management. But certainly I don't want to speak for Terry. So if Terry wants to talk, that's up to Terry.
I didn't think so, but but just generally, Terry, knowing your position, that you've done a great job with 44 years, is this a reasonable expectation of what the next person coming in will be able to accomplish?
Well, I think it is because with the HR generalist, when she came on board, she took over, you know, like the workers' comp, the FMLA, anything that has to do with personnel, basically. So that's pretty much off my plate now. So, and the liability and the liability insurance and doing the agendas and minutes and that's still all gonna stay in this position, but there's certainly probably room for, granted, right now, I'm still helping Megan with a lot of stuff, but eventually it's gonna probably be it would be off of this job position, so it would leave room for other avenues of work.
Okay, yeah, I forgot we had done that, so, okay,
Makes sense?
yep, total sense, yep. Okay, any other discussion on this?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the creation and classification of management analyst position and the advertising and hiring of management analyst position as requested by the village manager.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, motion carries. 9, items for next agenda. Anything anybody want to see or discuss next meeting?
Before we adjourn,
Nope, yeah.
I would like to somehow make a motion or something that thank Terry for her years of service, and it's been a pleasure working with her, and the village is certainly going to miss her. So, thank you, Terry.
Absolutely.
And I would like that as part of our minutes if we could. Is that motion so made?
Second.
Make it negotiate as you want, Terry.
Okay, well, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Terry's making the minutes up, so she can put whatever she wants.
That's what I was trying to say.
And then you just
Make
have
it
to
as good
approve
as
the
you
minutes for the next meeting. I will just add, because Tracy did ask the question about wage, so salary grade 6, the starting, if we were to use an hourly equivalent, $26.91 is the starting wage. The hiring range goes up to $29.71 per hour, and step 15 of the overall pay scale goes to $35.51. So 26.
Joel, is this position exempt as well?
Yep, so this would be an exempt position, so the
That would-
salary equivalent would be 55,978. Hiring range up to 61,805. And top of scale 73,862.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we got another group waiting to come in. Need a motion to adjourn, yep.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, we are
Aye.
adjourned.
This conference